You wake up. It's an ordinary morning, but something on the wall is wrong, and it takes you a second to see it. The old photo of your great-grandfather. In your world, he's in uniform. Here he's in a factory apron. He never went to war. You get up. The radio is on. The news is about Europe, about Asia, about empires you were taught had fallen by now. They didn't. There's a calendar on the fridge. December 7th is just a square. No one marks it. No one ever called it a day that would live in infamy. On the shelf, the history books are thin where they should be thick. The chapter called America's War was never written, because in this world, on that December morning, the harbor at Pearl was quiet. The planes never came. This is still America, but it's an America that stayed home, and almost everything about your life grew out of that one thing it didn't do. December 7th, 1941. In our world, Japan attacks the American fleet at Pearl Harbor, and a country that wanted no part of the war is thrown into it overnight. Here, that attack never happens. Maybe the fleet had moved. Maybe Tokyo blinked. Either way, the blow that woke the giant never lands, and a giant that is never struck never wakes. America stays exactly where most Americans wanted it. Out. There is no day of infamy speech. No lines around the block at the recruiting office. The war stays an ocean away on someone else's map. In our world, that one attack turns the entire United States into the arsenal of the free world almost overnight. Here, the arsenal stays shut. No flood of American tanks, planes, and ships. No 2 million soldiers crossing the Atlantic. The weight that tipped the war never arrives. So the war in Europe doesn't end the way you were taught. Without the full force of America, the fight is longer, grinding, and far less certain. Whoever finally wins, wins exhausted, and wins differently. The clean victory in your textbooks is replaced by something murkier, and from that one morning that stayed quiet, the entire second half of the century bends in a different direction. There is no greatest generation, because there is no war that makes one. The men who would have come home as heroes simply keep their old jobs. The economic boom that war spending lit never catches fire the same way. The factories that would have armed the world go on making what they always made. There is no GI Bill sending millions to college. The wave of engineers and scientists it created never crests. A whole educated middle class is never minted. The suburbs that those returning soldiers filled, the houses, the highways, the families, are smaller, slower, later. The world you picture as the 1950s never quite arrives, and without an America pulled onto the world stage by force, the country stays what it had always been. Powerful, but turned inward, an ocean away from everyone else's fight. There is no American century. The phrase is never coined, because the country that would have owned it chose to sit this one out. With no decisive American victory, there is no America standing tallest in the rubble afterward, dictating the shape of the peace. The New World Order is drawn by older, more tired hands. The empires that survived the war however they could, not by a fresh superpower from across the sea. Power doesn't flow to Washington. It stays scattered among the capitals of Europe and Asia that fought it out to the bitter end themselves. And because America never builds the bomb in a desperate race to end a war it's fighting, the nuclear age begins somewhere else, on someone else's timetable. When the bomb finally arrives, it isn't an American secret first. The country that built it first sets the rules of the age of fear. There is no Cold War between Washington and Moscow the way you imagine it. Because Washington never rose to be the other pole the whole world balanced against. The standoff that defined your parents' lives, the two flags, the wall, the missiles counted on both sides, looks nothing like the one you were taught. No race to the moon between two superpowers. When a rocket finally goes up, the flag on its side may not be one you'd recognize at all. And the culture that America exported to the whole planet after the war It never gets exported because the war that made America the center never happened. The films, the music, the blue jeans, the brands that became the language of the modern world, they stay local or never appear. The world sounds and looks like someone else. There is no Hollywood as the dream factory of Earth. There is no rock and roll carried on the back of American power into every country on the map. The songs everyone sings, the movies everyone quotes, none of them are the ones you grew up with. The soundtrack of the century belongs to somebody else. The money that runs the world is not the dollar. With no war to make America the banker of the planet, the world keeps trading in older currencies. There is no Silicon Valley the way you know it. The boom of money and brains and government contracts that grew it, born from a war America never fought, never happens here. When the thinking machines finally arrive, they're built somewhere else, by whoever did pour their war into science. The future has a different accent. Even the network that connects the world is not the one you use. It was a defense project in a country racing an enemy. Take away the race, and the wires run somewhere else. By the 21st century, there is no leader of the free world with an American face, because America never stepped up to lead it. The world is still carved up between the powers that simply outlasted the war. And the United States is one country among many, not the one above them all. It's not a poorer America, or a cruel one. It's a smaller one. A country that stayed in its own backyard while the world decided its shape without it. Power in this world never crossed the ocean to settle in Washington. It stayed where it had always been, older and far from your shore. And now you're back in your kitchen. The apron in the old photo. The unmarked square on the calendar. The radio talking about empires that should be gone. Now you know why. One attack that never came. One fleet left untouched. One giant that was never struck and so never woke. In our world, that morning dragged America into the fight. And everything you call normal, the boom, the suburbs, the dollar, the whole American century, grew out of the war that one attack began. So here's the question. How thin was the line? How much of the world you live in was built by a single morning of fire that, here, simply never happened? Tell me in the comments which world you'd rather wake up in tomorrow, and I'll show you the next one.